The unbelievable day God defeated an entire army alone, few knew what truly happened that night. The air was thick with dread. An army of thousands loomed on the horizon, their armor glinting under the cold moonlight. The people of Israel trembled in their homes, fear gripping their hearts like a vice. Panic buzzed through the streets. Whispers filled the darkened corners. How could we survive this? In that chilling moment, Joshua stood at the edge of the camp. He felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He closed his eyes, every breath a deep shudder. All he could hear was the distant noise of clanking weapons and the murmurs of an approaching doom. They were outnumbered. The enemy was fierce. Everyone was sure it would be the end. But something profound stirred within Joshua. History tells of a time when the Israelites wandered through the dark deserts lost, hungry, and broken. But this was different. This was the land promised to them, the land they fought for at every turn. It was the moment of reckoning. The stakes were higher than ever. They had lost battles before, but what if this night was meant for something more? With the first light of dawn came courage and magic. A sound erupted from the heavens, a rumbling, shattering roar that split the air. The ground shook beneath them. The very sky changed color, a wild hue of red and orange swirling together like a storm, announcing a war worthy of legends. Was that a voice? Or was it the power of God himself? The air crackled with unseen energy, sending shivers down every spine. Then, in an unexpected twist, the soldiers of the enemy faltered. Confusion swept through their ranks like wildfire. They stumbled, glancing around. What was happening? Their numbers did not seem as sure now, not on this miraculous day. The sun, brilliant and bold, held its position in the sky. It was a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring. What was the meaning of this? Only whispers followed messages of divine intervention. Joshua felt a tightness in his chest. Suddenly the enemy fell, one after another. Some claimed to see figures, bright as lightning, dashing through the chaos. Others heard a divine whisper promise of victory. They were not alone, after all. With each breath, Joshua realized they were on the precipice of something monumental. Was this God's way of fighting? Was it true? Could an entire army be defeated without a single sword drawn? As hope ignited, a haunting question lingered in the air. What could this miraculous day truly mean for the fate of Israel? How far would this power go? The people watched in silence, hearts racing, breaths held the promise of freedom just within reach. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the dust settled and the last echoes of the battle faded, the Israelites emerged from their tents, drawn by the sounds of triumph that filled the air. They looked around, bewildered, as they caught their first glimpse of the aftermath. The enemy, once an overwhelming force, lay scattered across the battlefield, their arrogance drowned in confusion and fear. What had started as an impending doom had transformed into a spectacle of divine power, but what reality lurked beneath the surface of this unexpected victory? With each passing moment, whispers of faith began to circulate among the people. They spoke of a new understanding of God's mighty force unlike any other. Even Joshua, who had gazed out into the night with trepidation, felt a strange resolve blossom within his spirit. Yet, as they surveyed the remnants of the battle, a different kind of introspection hung heavy in the air. Was their deliverance merely a display of power, or was there a deeper purpose designed for the hearts of the Israelites? Amidst the euphoria, an elder approached Joshua, eyes glistening with reverence and uncertainty. Do you feel it, Joshua? She asked. The presence of the Almighty lingers still, like a flame kept alive by faith. But what are we to learn from this day? Will this victory alone sustain us against the trials that surely lie ahead? Joshua turned to her, seeing the vulnerability in her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, he faltered. This victory had come not at the hands of soldiers, but through the mystery of divine intervention. It was a reminder that they walked a delicate line between faith and fear. Had they grasped the full significance of God's act on their behalf? The silence of the morning hung thick like a shroud, often echoing the need for reflection. In those quiet moments, Joshua felt an urge to remind his people of the history of the murmurs in the desert, the struggles for sustenance, and the legacy of faith woven through their ancestral stories. The day's victory was monumental, yet it could not overshadow the need to remain steadfast. Each miracle carried a weight of responsibility not only to recognize God's power but to live in accordance with it. As uncertainty crept in anew, a flicker of doubt brushed the edges of his thoughts. If God could defeat an entire army with mere whispers and thunder, could he not also challenge them in ways they might not understand? The promise of a future was brightened by miraculous light, yet shadows still loomed, reminding them that courage would be needed beyond the singular moment. As the Israelites gathered to give thanks, their voices rising in unison, a question pierced the joy of their celebration. What awaited them as they emerged from this victory, and were they ready to carry the weight of the truths revealed? The path ahead seemed shrouded in both promise and uncertainty, every step requiring faith, and so, as the sun began to rise fully across the landscape, illuminating the battlefield like a canvas of redemption, the people of Israel paused, considering the meaning behind their miraculous victory. What lay ahead remained wrapped in a fog of the unknown, but one truth was unmistakable: they had witnessed the hand of God. How would that shape their journey from this day forward? In the days that followed their extraordinary triumph, a palpable shift settled over the camp of Israel. The adrenaline of the battle slowly faded, giving rise to a contemplative air that mingled with the fragrant smoke of evening offerings. Fires crackled as men, women, and children gathered in clusters, recounting tales of the day when fear dissipated with a single commanding voice. Shadows flickered in the dim light, but amidst the stories, an unsettling question emerged: what lay beyond this victory, and what unseen trials would they have to face? Joshua recognized that while the voices of elation filled the camp, a different call echoed within his own heart. Each night, he found himself wandering to the edge of the encampment, gazing upon the horizon bathed in the glow of the setting sun. It beckoned him forward, a reminder of the vast wilderness yet to traverse. Was this victory a prelude to something greater, or a moment to bask in before the storms ahead? One evening, as the stars twinkled like celestial messengers, Joshua convened the leaders of the tribes. He sensed it was time to address the deeper meanings behind their miraculous escape. With their faces illuminated by flickering flames, he spoke of the history that shaped their identity, lineage steeped in struggle and unwavering faith. As we celebrate God's deliverance, he began, we must not surrender our vigilance. Just as he has shown us his power against the enemies of our past, we must prepare our hearts and minds for what lies ahead. His words stirred the assembly. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged hesitant glances, grappling with the weight of accountability that came with divine favor. An elder from the tribe of Ephraim raised a hand, her voice steady but tinged with humility. Joshua, we rejoiced when the earth shook, but are we bold enough to ask what this victory requires of us? Is our understanding of faith expansive enough to embrace the challenges God may place upon us? Her question hung in the air, heavy with reflection. The flicker of hope danced in many eyes, but shadowed doubt loomed just beneath the surface. How were they to live out this faith amidst a world full of uncertainties? Joshua sensed an opportunity for them to dive deeper, to explore the nuances of God's teachings. As moonlight bathed the encampment, he gathered the people around him. Let us recall the signs of the covenant, he urged. Remember how our ancestors wandered lost, yet they were never forsaken. God guided them, leading them onward with unwavering grace. But each step required trust, a willingness to move forward despite what lay ahead. Dim memories stirred within their hearts, tales of wandering and promise. The people began to murmur, sharing their own experiences of doubt and faith, of fear overcoming their courage during the dark moments of their journey. They remembered the enslavement, the cries for deliverance that had echoed through generations, and the hope that thrived on the brink of despair. Yet, even as they recalled those stories, a shared concern wove among them. Was their victory a summons? A moment to shine, or a test to remain steadfast when the easy paths were absent? The air thickened with unvoiced worries, each concerned of what tomorrow might bring. As the last embers of light faded into the deepness of night, and silence enveloped the camp, Joshua posed another question, one that transcended the celebration of their victory. If God has shown such might to protect his people today, how shall we align our hearts to truly understand and embrace his will for our lives moving forward? The Israelites sat in silence, each one wrestling with the notion of faith intertwined with responsibility and the mysteries still unfolding before them. They had seen the hand of God, yet the foundations of their understanding would be tested, needing to evolve with each subsequent chapter of their journey. What would be required of them as they moved from celebrated victors to faithful followers navigating the unknown expanse that lay ahead? As dawn broke over the encampment, heralding a new day, the land stretched beneath the fading darkness with the promise of light. The sun rose, illuminating the faces of the Israelites who remained in quiet contemplation after Joshua's gathering. Each morning carried the weight of the previous night's reflections, and the questions posed in the shadows stirred within them. With the first light of day, a sense of urgency seemed to ripple through the camp. Joshua felt this urgency as well, an unarticulated understanding that they must translate their celebratory spirit into enduring strength. He gathered the leaders once more, sensing that the time had come not just to celebrate, but to prepare. Brothers and sisters, he called to them, his voice steady, victory is not a destination, but a pathway to righteousness. We cannot rest upon our laurels, rather, we must embody our faithful witness to our covenant by how we live, even in times of ease. As these words settled among them, an unexpected voice broke through. Caleb, his fellow scout and close companion, stepped forth with eyes gleaming with vigor. Joshua, we know that God has given us this land. Yet, what of those who still dwell in it? How do we reconcile our victories with the ongoing plight of others? Are we meant to conquer or to embrace them as part of God's grand design? Caleb's question resonated deeply, echoing the complexity of their journey and the fragility of their moral understanding. The people murmured, reflecting on their divine commissioning that came with both promises and responsibilities. Was their victory a signal of divine favor, or simply the beginning of a more profound trial to come, to understand their role among the nations that inhabited the land they had yet to claim? In that moment of questioning, an elder from the tribe of Judah raised his staff, a symbol of both authority and profound reflection. Let us not forget that our ancestors encountered many nations and remained faithful by remembering their own experiences of hardship. We were once slaves, crying out in bitterness and despair. He paused, glancing around at the gathered faces. Perhaps in our efforts to claim this victory, we must also find ways to demonstrate compassion to those who may oppose us. Joshua nodded thoughtfully, grasping the spirit of their conversation. Yes, our strength lies not only in the sword but in the heart. We are to be neither conquerors nor wanderers, but stewards of grace. As we venture forth into the promise of this land, let us discern God's voice in each encounter, seeking guidance on how to shine His light even among adversaries. As the gathering gave way to murmurs of contemplation, the people faced the uncertainty hovering on the horizon like an unshaped cloud. Each knew that to truly claim the promised land would require a navigation of both the outer world and their inner selves. The unease didn't fade, it deepened, prompting them to consider the cost that might accompany their inheritance. Later that day, while the sun climbed higher, illuminating the land with divine brilliance, Joshua found himself alone at the waters of a gentle brook that ran at the edge of the camp. Here, he listened to the whispers of the current, contemplating the nature of divine instruction, the lessons intertwined within the chaos of life and the subtler whispers hidden in the quiet moments. As he gazed over the rippling waters, a question formed within him. If faith was indeed a journey entwined with responsibility, how would they respond to the challenges of the land they were destined to inhabit? Would their victories transform into a deeper understanding of their mission to lead with compassion rather than clamor for dominance? What awaited them on the horizon was uncertain, but the quest for understanding was essential. Where would their hearts lead them in the continuous unfolding of God's grand design? As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting shimmering rays upon the camp, a stillness settled over the people of Israel. From where Joshua stood by the brook, he could feel the weight of their hearts. Thoughts of conquest were laced with the undeniable urge to understand the implications of their divine calling. Each step closer to their inheritance stirred within him an anticipation intertwined with trepidation. That night, the elders gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by flickering flames, where the scent of roasted meat mingled with the smoke. Discussions erupted, weaving stories of their forebears' fables of courage and failure, divine providence and moments of wandering. A shared sentiment arose, the urge to seek divine direction for the challenges that loomed on the horizon. Let us seek the Lord, an elder suggested, his eyes reflecting the embers. Daniel, the priest, spoke of a time when God moved among us, instructing our steps and guiding our path. We must remember that in all our endeavors, it is His voice we must follow. They agreed to fast and pray, setting aside their fears and curiosities to focus on the Lord. With solemnity, they sought clarity, believing that God's wisdom would penetrate their uncertainties. On the next morning, with the daylight greeting the land anew, Joshua felt an undeniable pull. He ventured up the nearby hill, seeking a sacred space where the earth met the heavens. The memories of his encounters with the Lord played over in his mind: the burning bush, the parting of the sea, each moment a testament to God's empowering presence. As he settled upon a stone outcropping, an unusual quiet enveloped him. Wind rustled through the trees, and he closed his eyes, ready to hear the voice that had guided him countless times before. It wasn't long before he felt the gentle prompting in his spirit. "Joshua," it whispered, "the land awaits, and I shall go before you." Startled, Joshua opened his eyes. The clarity was unmistakable, yet the accompanying weight of responsibility hung heavily in the silence. But, Lord, he murmured in prayer, what shall we do when they rise against us? In the face of opposition, how do we balance justice and mercy? Do we battle as we have been trained, or do we show restraint? The wind seemed to respond, swirling around him, a reassurance that resonated deep within his heart. I will show you signs of my power, but remember, I desire hearts transformed. The victory is mine, but the path you take will reveal my glory. Confidence born from strength must be enveloped in the spirit of peace. That evening, as the stars emerged brighter than he had ever seen, Joshua returned to the camp. As stirring had begun, the people were eager, their anticipation palpable. They awaited counsel from him, the leader who walked both in courage and in the reverence of divine whisperings. He gathered them once again and recounted his experience on the hill. The Lord has promised our victory, but it shall not come in the manner we expect. We shall not march in fury bearing swords, no, we will move as vessels of faith, tuned to his guidance. Caleb's eyes sparkled with a mix of skepticism and hope. How then, Joshua, shall we confront our enemies? With what means do we claim the land God has sworn to us? Joshua raised his hand to quiet the murmurs. Tomorrow, we shall march towards the city of Jericho, and we shall not raise our voices to battle, but rather shout in reverence. The Lord desires to demonstrate his power through our faith, not our arms. Confusion rippled through the crowd, yet the undercurrent of excitement was undeniable. Questions buzzed among them. How could shouting bring down walls? Was it truly the Lord's will to lead them in such an unconventional manner? As night deepened, the people laid themselves down under a blanket of stars, their minds churning with newfound ideas and uncertainties. What manner of victory awaited them? What lessons entwined with their faith could be learned from this path? Joshua too struggled to sleep, contemplating the profound gravity of their mission, the balance of strength and grace, conquest and compassion. As dawning light crept silently through the sky, he asked himself, in their pursuit of the promised land, would they recognize that true victory lay not just in triumph over enemies, but in the understanding that within each encounter, they stepped closer to embodying the love of their Creator? What sacrifices would they be called to make along the way, and how deeply would their faith be tested before the castles of stone that towered above them fell? As dawn painted the horizon with hues of gold, the air buzzed with an electric anticipation. Joshua gathered the people, their eyes wide with uncertainty yet sparked with an ember of faith. This was the day they would face Jericho, the city whose towering walls seemed insurmountable, a stronghold that stood defiant against their advance. The elders and warriors fell into formation, their sounds of armor clanking resonating like a heartbeat of resolve. Joshua raised his voice above the clamor, a firm foundation built on the whispered promises of God. Listen to my words, people of Israel. We embark not on a journey of arms, but of faith. Hold your heads high, and remember your inner strength. At the forefront was the Ark of the Covenant, its golden surface bright against the dawn, its presence a reminder of God's covenant with his people. Joshua commanded the priests to bear it aloft, their hands trembling with both fear and reverence. Let the Ark lead us, he instructed, for God is not just with us, he goes before us. The procession began a solemn march around Jericho, led by the priests and flanked by armed men, though the promise of silence weighed heavier than swords. Each step resonated with both hope and confusion, an uncertain echo against the hardened heart of the city. As they circled the formidable walls, a haunting silence fell upon them, with no battle cries to match the dauntless faith swirling in the air. Only the soft sound of their feet whispered on the dusty path while the towering walls loomed above, a stark reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. On the seventh day, Joshua instructed them to awaken before the sun broke the horizon. Today is the day of victory, he declared with a fervent determination. They would march around the city not just once, but 7 times, and on the last lap, the sound of their voices would shatter the air, a sound not born from fear, but from the depths of their faith. With each turn bypassed, the people's anxiety brewed into a collective spirit, each sweep around the city marking time, faith, and unyielding trust. The guarded streets of Jericho remained silent, yet the hearts of the Israelites became emboldened with every step they took. Finally, on the final circuit, Joshua raised his staff high, signaling the moment they had awaited. Shout! For the Lord has given you the city, commanded Joshua, his voice rising above the fray. And so, they shouted, a tempest of released fears, hopes, and promises unfurling all at once. The sound seemed to ripple through the air, reverberating with a divine power that even the mightiest walls could not withstand. Suddenly, as if time itself held its breath, the earth quaked in response. The stones seemed to shift and tremble, and the walls of Jericho, which had stood for generations, yielded and collapsed, swallowed by the ground. Dust spiraled upwards, mingling with the shouts of the Israelites, filling the air with the triumphant clamor of faith fulfilled. As the dust settled, the people rushed in, their emotions a whirlpool of awe and disbelief. What they witnessed transcended their understanding, victory unearned by swords or conflict, yet profoundly conquered by a love more potent than any weapon. In the heart of the city, amid the ruins, Joshua paused, the weight of what had just transpired surging through him. How often had he questioned this path, and yet here they stood, illuminated by a victory wholly defined by God's sovereign grace. As the sun dipped low, casting golden rays through the remnants of mighty walls, Joshua reflected deeply. What does it mean to trust when all seems impossible? He pondered within his spirit. In what other ways might God desire to unfold his plans, where our strength is shown in surrender, and our victories woven into the fabric of humility? And what lessons shall each Israelite carry from this day, etched forever in their hearts? As the dust from Jericho settled and the echoes of victory reverberated through the hearts of the Israelites, the euphoria began to intertwine with a profound silence. They stood amidst the remnants of a city that had held power over their journey, yet it now lay in ruins, a testament not to their might, but to unwavering faith. That Joshua moved amongst the people, his leadership now shadowed by an undercurrent of contemplation. As they celebrated, he couldn't help but notice the strange glances exchanged among the elders, their eyes ignited by both victory and uncertainty. It was as if an invisible thread of destiny had been stitched within the fabric of their triumph, urging them to contemplate the deeper reflections this day would summon. Gather around. Joshua commanded gently yet firmly, pulling their attention to the ark, the golden presence still gleaming amid the rubble. This victory is not simply for us, it belongs to the God who led us. Remember this day, for it is not the end of our journey, but a passage deeper into his promises. As the people encircled the ark, the atmosphere thickened with a sense of reverence. Joshua laid his hand upon its surface and spoke, "What we have seen is beyond human understanding. Let us not forget that our strength lies not in our swords but in our surrender to his will. We have faced the intimidating walls of Jericho, but we must also confront the walls within ourselves, those of fear and doubt that still stand tall." From the crowd emerged a young man named Caleb, known for his unwavering spirit. "How can we apply this moment of faith to what lies ahead?" he asked, his voice steady, carrying the weight of all who sought to understand the profound lesson embedded in their conquest. "If we are to possess the land, what must we do to sustain such trust in the Lord?" Joshua turned, his expression thoughtful. "You ask a vital question, Caleb. Trust is never a one-time act, it must be nurtured through obedience and remembrance. We must carry forth this victory not as an isolated event but as a foundation for all that is to come. It is easy to trust when the walls come tumbling down, but the real challenge lies in trusting when the ground beneath us feels unsteady. As night enveloped the land, stars flickered to life in the sky, a heavenly canvas that seemed to affirm Joshua's words. The Israelites gathered close, their faces lit by the faint glow of campfires, revealing expressions ranging from joy to newfound awareness. In their heart of hearts, they grappled with the enormity of what had transpired, and its implications. They often recalled the stories of their ancestors, of Abraham, who journeyed through the unknown, of Moses, who defied the might of Egypt with a simple rod, and now, of Joshua, who led every heart into a faith that tore down fortified barriers. But now, thin lines of vulnerability began to surface. Could the God who had done so much still be relied upon for the unknowns that lay before them? "Remember this moment," Joshua urged the gathering, "for the true challenge begins now. As we hold our heads high, we must do so with humility, knowing that everything we achieve from henceforth is a reflection of his grace. We carry the burden of this mantle, may we do so with wisdom." In the stillness of the night, the Israelite people shared their fears and aspirations under the vast starlit sky. They recognized that while their battle was won, the deeper journey of faith was just beginning, the path that required constant vigilance, communion with God, and the gentle nurturing of trust in their hearts. As the fire crackled, Joshua's thoughts wandered to the looming challenges ahead. Could they maintain their faith when faced with the unknown armies of future cities? What barriers within their own hearts would need to be addressed to fully embrace God's plan for them? Would their hearts remain steadfast in humility when future victories would be more challenging than they could imagine? In the quiet, the Israelites contemplated the profound truth of their experience. And like sparks igniting the night air, their questions floated upward, leaving behind a sense of wonder yet unanswered. What does it truly mean to live out faith in the face of trials still awaiting? And how shall they remain grounded in truth amidst whispers of doubt that may rise even in times of triumph? The morning sun ascended, casting a warm light across the plains of Jericho, illuminating the remnants of their victory. As the Israelites stirred from their tents, the quietude of the morning was punctuated by muted conversations and the soft crackling of wood in the fires. Yet, There was an unspoken tension lingering among them, a question like a weight pressing on their spirits. Joshua stood at the edge of the encampment, gazing towards the horizon where the land stretched beyond their sight. He felt the pulse of the people behind him, a mixture of hope and trepidation. Today was not merely another dawn but a continuation of their journey towards the promised land, a land filled with unknowns and potential trials. As he awaited their assembling, he pondered the instructions given by God, the very same commandments that had guided them through the wilderness. Would they continue to heed them amidst the lustrous beauty of conquest? Would the remnants of Jericho's stronghold reverberate in their hearts, not as echoes of fear but as a call to deeper faithfulness? Gather again, my friends. Joshua called, his voice rising above the morning murmurs. As the Israelites congregated, he noticed more than just faces. He saw a mosaic of dreams and uncertainties woven together. Today, we stand on the edge of our future, he began, his tone earnest. With Jericho behind us, we must now prepare for what lies ahead. He raised his hand toward the distant hills, where Canaan stretched like a promise yet to be fulfilled. What do you see? He asked. The people shifted their gazes, leaning forward as if to uncover something hidden. Do you see cities fortified by walls? Or do you see a land where we will plant, nurture, and grow in the abundance of His blessings? Many voices chimed in, their imaginations ignited. We see a land of milk and honey, exclaimed one elder. And yet, we see giants amongst the harvest, another added, uncertainty lacing his tone. Joshua nodded, understanding the duality of their vision. Both are true. But remember, the giants you speak of will not be defeated by our might alone. Each confrontation we face will require the same faith that brought the walls of Jericho down. His heart ached knowing that despite their triumph, the journey would demand every ounce of perseverance they could muster. Consider now the stories of our forebears, he said, prompting them to remember the lessons of the past. Did not Abraham trust when he was asked to sacrifice Isaac? Did not Moses hold firm when the sea closed behind him? Was it not their faith coupled with action that brought forth the greatness we now inherit? As murmurs arose among the crowd, a hush fell over them when an unexpected voice emerged. It was Miriam, a woman of courage and vision. But Joshua, are we not humans shaped by fear? Our hearts quiver at the thought of giants. How do we prepare ourselves to face what lurks in the shadows of our faith? Her words resonated deeply. Joshua felt the weight of a question as it rippled through the hearts gathered. Indeed, fear is but a shadow, my friends. And shadows are dispelled by light. We must fill our hearts with the light of remembrance of what He has already accomplished among us. Let us share our stories, our fears, and our victories, for they will be our armor against doubt. A murmur of agreement spread through the assembly. Caleb stood forth once again, but how can we keep these stories alive? How do we bind our hearts in this truth when confrontations emerge? Joshua smiled at the young man's vigor. We begin with what we have now by memorializing this victory. Let each family raise a stone, not only as a monument to Jericho's fall but as a reminder of what God is capable of. These stones will witness our journey, our struggles, and our faith in the Lord. They will help us tell our children and theirs of the mighty works of our God. With renewed resolve, they set forth to gather stones from the river, unearthing remnants of the past that would now serve as a foundation for their collective memory. As laughter mingled with solemnity, the act of gathering became a sacred practice, binding their hearts to the covenant they shared with God and one another. But as they worked, a tension lingered within Joshua's heart. He felt the stirring of something great, a challenge yet to unfold, a confrontation more profound than any physical battle. Would their faith remain strong when the walls were not made of stone but instead formed from their fears, doubts, and unresolved tensions? As evening descended and the stones were placed together, Joshua looked upon the makeshift altar, palpable in its symbolism. It stood as a testament to their faith and a question that hung in the air, unfulfilled. When the true giants rise before them, which will they choose to confront, those in the land, or the ones within themselves? How would they nurture their faith when facing battles that would test not just their strength but the very essence of their belief? As the stars twinkled in the vastness of a moonlit sky, the encampment of the Israelites settled into a rhythm of rest. Whispered conversations echoed under the canopy of stars, reflecting the unity forged through their labor of remembrance. Yet, in the heart of every person lay an undercurrent of anxiety, intertwining with the pride of their recent victory. Joshua knew the stillness was merely a prelude, for the promise of Canaan was shadowed by formidable foes. The following day dawned, and Joshua rose early, compelled by a deep sense of urgency. He walked through the silent camp, listening to the metaphorical heartbeat of the people sleeping, so trusting in their purpose yet unaware of the impending trials. How he longed for his own assurance. It weighed heavily upon him, thus calling to lead them into battles unseen and challenges unspoken. He prayed ardently for clarity, for divine illumination to pierce the fog of uncertainty enveloping their collective spirit. He began to recall the tales of the ancients. He remembered Gideon, who had faced overwhelming odds armed only with courage, and the faithful Esther, who withstood an empire's wrath for the sake of her people. These reflections opened a door within him, leading to a faint glimmer of revelation. What if true victory required a reckoning not only with the external hostile forces but also an internal confrontation with their fate's fragility? In the quiet of his thoughts, a sudden rustling interrupted the stillness. A delegation arrived. The leaders of the tribes approached him, their expressions painted with the colors of urgency. Joshua, Caleb spoke first, we must engage with the people of Ai. Their men have been stirring, emboldened by our act at Jericho. It is time for us to advance. Joshua felt the pulse of their words echoing the instrument of faith he wielded, yet something tugged at him, the still, small voice guiding him to consider their path carefully. And what of our hearts, Caleb? Have we called the entire assembly to united prayer? Have we not yet sought the counsel of the Lord? In that moment, Miriam joined their circle, her eyes reflecting understanding. It is vital to remember, too, that we were not alone when we overcame Jericho. The hand of God did not merely push the walls down but infused our faith with strength. We must approach Ai with an earnest heart, invoking His presence, not merely as conquerors but as vessels of His covenant. With the leaders in agreement, Joshua called the people together again. From their very tents, they emerged, sleep still lingering in their eyes, yet curiosity drew them close as the sun ascended higher in the sky. Joshua stood before them once more, the fire of resolve igniting within him. Today, he began, we seek wisdom and favor from God as we prepare for another challenge. The men of Ai are rising against us, and as we confront them, we must first kneel before the Lord in prayer and humility. He gestured for everyone to join him in the sacred act of supplication. As they prayed together, Joshua led the assembly in reflection, recounting the wonders of God, the parting of the Red Sea, the provision of manna, and the miraculous fall of Jericho's walls. Each account created a tapestry binding their spirits in the essence of trust. Let us now put aside fear, he implored, and offer our hearts in full surrender to His will. With each prayer lifted, Joshua felt the shifting of something profound within their unity, a spirit of readiness growing stronger, wrapped around the people like a warm cloak. Yet an unsettling sensation continued to dwindle beneath the surface of this empowerment. What if their unity faltered during the battle ahead? What if doubt arose like weeds in a well-tended garden? As they concluded their prayers, a sense of calm emerged, yet the future remained uncertain. When at last Joshua directed them towards Ai, he couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would press them not just against physical opponents, but deep into the fibers of their beliefs, challenging their understanding of God's nature and their trust in Him. What awaited them at Ai? Would their belief stand firm when faced with the blood and sweat of battle? Or would they stumble under the weight of their own apprehensions, revealing the cracks within? The journey was not merely to conquer a fortress but to fortify their character in the face of fear and expedition, not just through the land, but within themselves. How would their faith evolve when the outline of the unseen giants loomed larger than life? As the morning light spilled over the hills, the air buzzed with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Joshua stood resolute, his heart fortified by prayer yet heavy with unspoken concern. The people of Israel gathered around him, their faces reflecting a tapestry of emotions, the spark of hope intertwined with the flicker of fear about the upcoming confrontation with Ai. Today, Joshua began, we honor the Lord who has led us. We have just witnessed the incredible power of faith, and now we must steel ourselves for the next step in our journey. The city of Ai lies ahead, and they believe they can stand against us. He paused, letting his words linger in the crisp air. But do not forget that our strength does not come from our numbers or our swords, it comes from our commitment to God's purpose. As the murmurs began to subside, Joshua continued. We are to move forward in faith, not presumption. Let every heart be aligned not with the sounds of confidence that stem from a past victory alone, but let it be filled with the assurance that comes from trusting in His guidance once more. Uncertainty hung like a shroud over the crowd, their minds raced, recalling the overwhelming power they had witnessed at Jericho. But now, facing an adversary that seemed visibly more daunting, the Israelite warriors stood ready, yet each glance towards their leader revealed a questioning spirit within them. Joshua sensed the need for a united front, not just in strength but in spirit. Prepare yourselves, for we will not meet them in arrogance, nor shall we surround Ai with a rush of eagerness. Today, we'll approach with the humility that recognizes our past victories have come only through His hand. As they began their march toward Ai, Joshua's thoughts raced. The remnants of their recent victory still tasted sweet, but the knowledge that they had yet to encounter authentic trials gripped him with an unsettling intensity. As they drew closer to the city, he could see the soldiers of Ai, their faces set in defiance, well aware of their own fierce determination. Upon arriving at the outskirts of Ai, Joshua called the men to halt. "Let us remember who we are," he said firmly. "We are not merely conquerors, we are a people on a journey to fulfill a promise." Confronting Ai is not simply about seizing the land, it is about understanding our role as instruments of His will. Today's trial will test us not just as soldiers, but as stewards of His grace. Suddenly, unexpected whispers rippled through the ranks of their own side as if doubt had been found wandering among them. "But what if we do not defeat them as we did Jericho?" a voice muttered in the back. "What if our faith fails in the fray?" Joshua felt a wave of discomfort wash over him. The very fate of their mission relied not on his leadership alone, but the collective faith of the entire nation. "Each of you must wrestle with your own spirit," he declared, "for every battle is won or lost within first. Our faith must be reinforced by humility, and our resolve forged in the fires of our struggles." With that, he called the people again to prayer, a prayer not of plea alone, but of seeking revelation. "Let our hearts beat in unison to His glory. We do not approach Ai with fear, instead, we bring forth our faith, our trust, and the very essence of our covenant with God." Together they prayed, lifting their voices to the heavens, pouring out their worries and hopes. As their mutual cries rose like incense, a transformation began to unfurl within Joshua's spirit. In the depth of the moment, he understood that this confrontation was not merely for victory over an enemy, it was an opportunity for their faith to deepen, for their hearts to be tested, for their souls to learn the true essence of reliance. After their prayer, Joshua felt an unusual calm settle upon him. With renewed determination, he moved to assess the approach. Artificial walls would not vanquish them, nor would the force of arms alone. Instead, they would encounter whatever lay ahead with resolute confidence drawn from renewed faith. "Tonight, we camp against Ai," he instructed. "We will not charge recklessly. Instead, we shall wait for His timing and listen for His voice. The Lord shall instruct us in how to penetrate the heart of the city." As darkness fell, the Israelites gathered with renewed commitment. They shared stories around the campfire, weaving words of hope born from past struggles and victories. The air thickened with an unspoken promise that whatever was to come, they would face it together underneath the expanse of stars. Joshua found a moment of solitude. He breathed in the night air, allowing thoughts of the upcoming battle to blend with prayers for guidance. The sun had set, but an illuminating clarity sprinkled hope within him. "May we yield ourselves as instruments of love and grace amidst the chaos of conflict," he prayed softly. As dawn broke over the encampment, the once muted voices of dawn exploded into a symphony of determination. Joshua called the people together, no longer in uncertainty but rather bathed in the radiance of mutual strength. "With God's guidance, we will advance, not as conquerors but as followers. We embody faith, rooted in love. With hearts unified, they advanced toward Ai yet again. But as they drew nearer, tragedy struck. In the fervor of the moment, a soldier hastily broke ranks, his actions heavy with disbelief. As he advanced without waiting for Joshua's command, chaos erupted, drawing the ire of the army of Ai. The very structure of their unity teetered on a foundation of fear and doubt, as the soldier faltered in his step. And yet, in that pivotal moment, Joshua's heart sank. This was not merely the fault of one man, it was the truth that their victory hinged not just on strength but upon the thread of faith that bathed them. "Hold fast," he bellowed. "We are not divided. Trust is our armor, let not one voice fracture our resolve." In a miraculous twist, that single misstep unraveled into a powerful revelation. The soldiers' faltering cry transformed the energy of the battle, echoing through the lines. Realigning their spirits, the Israelites rallied behind Joshua, calling out to one another, embracing their vulnerability. They became a confluence of voices pouring out faith against fear. As they stood shoulder to shoulder, in their willingness to embrace this uncertain journey together, they began to change the tide of the battle. In that unified heartbeat, a divine warmth enveloped them. The walls of Ai did not just represent strongholds of the city, within it lay the echoes of their own hearts, and they resolved to dismantle the barriers built on doubt and isolation. And then, with a fire ignited deep within them, the people surged forward not as mere warriors but as messengers of divine promise. They fought with an arena of faith, and through their collective cries, Ai trembled before them. The grip of fear that once shackled them began to fall away, revealing the mighty hand of God in their midst, their true strength pouring forth from vulnerability and unity. In that pivotal moment, everything crystallized for Joshua. The battle was far from what they had envisioned, but they had learned invaluable truths about trust, community, and the love that binds them together, a love born from the depths of struggle and shared faith. As the walls of Ai fell, not just a testament to their resolve but a profound lesson that echoed through the annals of time, they discovered the beauty of standing together within their trials would forge a legacy of promise that transcended every adversary. On that victorious day, Joshua knew that their journey was continuously unfolding. With each stride forward, they were no longer just a people seeking a promised land but a collective heartbeat attuned to forging a legacy of faith amid trials. Let us walk henceforth with the understanding that each conflict we face is not merely a battle but a revelation, a chance to embody the strength of our Creator, Joshua proclaimed. His spirit set aflame with newfound conviction. In the hearts of the Israelites, the lesson echoed a revelation that resonated through future generations. It was no longer the strongest among them who would lead but those who understood vulnerability, and the embrace of faith that knew true victory lay beyond simply conquering lands but in encountering God through every trial. As they moved forward into Canaan, with trust ignited, they held fast to the truth that true strength arises not just through power but through love, a relentless pursuit of grace that affirmed life's greatest victories often lie within the bonds that bring us together in faith.